This music filling his home, this love rebuilding his heart, this family forged in the furnace of shared pain. This was untouchable. The battle for his business empire would be brutal. He'd probably lose more than he'd save. But as he listened to his children sing, Marcus knew with bone-deep certainty he'd already won everything that mattered. The real war wasn't about money or power. It was about choosing love over fear, hope over despair, and the family you make over the family you're given. And in that war, a 12-year-old girl with a voice like heaven and an 8-year-old boy finding his own song had made him victorious. Chidi could take everything else, but he couldn't touch this. Morning came with lawyers and threats, but Marcus faced them with something he hadn't felt in years: peace. His children were safe. His heart was whole. Let the world do its worst. He had already found its best. The next 6 months tested every promise Marcus had made. Chidi's takeover was surgical and brutal. Using the codes from Marcus's darkest days and leveraging the board members he'd cultivated during his brother's illness, he managed to seize control of 3 subsidiaries and freeze assets worth billions. Marcus fought back with everything he had, but depression had made him careless with signatures, and Chidi had been patient in collecting them. Documents surfaced showing Marcus had agreed to transfers during periods he couldn't even remember. They lost the house first. 90 days to vacate, the court officer said, not meeting their eyes as he served the eviction notice. Adaiz stood tall beside Marcus as he received it. "It's just walls," she said. "We've lived in worse." But David's hands shook as he signed. "Where will we go?" "Somewhere smaller," Marcus said, trying to sound confident. "Somewhere that's ours." The cars went next. Then the household staff who cried as they left, especially Mrs. Necker. "I'd work for free," she insisted. "I know," Marcus said gently. "But you have your own family to feed. Go with my blessing." Their new home was a 3-bedroom flat in Surulere. The entire space could fit in the living room of their former mansion. The neighbors stared as they moved in. Everyone knew the Okafor name, and everyone loved a fall from grace. But inside their small flat, something beautiful happened. Without staff to cook, Adaiz learned to make jollof rice from YouTube videos, burning it spectacularly the first 3 times. David became obsessed with keeping their tiny garden alive, coaxing tomatoes from pots on the balcony. Marcus, who hadn't cooked since university, rediscovered the simple pleasure of making breakfast for his children. "We're like a real family now," Adaiz said one evening, all of them crowded on the small couch watching Nollywood films on Marcus's laptop. "We were always real," Marcus corrected. "I know, but now we're normal real, not rich real." David signed his agreement, then added something that made Adaiz laugh. "What did he say?" "He says the mice here sing at night, and he's composing songs with them." They all laughed, even as they heard the scratching in the walls. Marcus took any consulting work he could find, swallowing his pride as former competitors offered him crumbs of projects. But it kept them fed, kept the children in school, kept the lights on. Then, one night, everything changed again. Marcus woke to singing. Not Adaiz's voice, but David's, clear and strong and beautiful. He crept to the children's door and peered in. David was sitting up in bed, tears streaming down his face, singing words Marcus had never heard before. "Mama, can you hear me? I found my voice again. It was hiding in the darkness, but Sister brought the rain." Adaiz sat beside him, holding his hand, tears matching his. When the song ended, David saw Marcus in the doorway. Instead of stopping, he spoke. Actually spoke. "I dreamed about my mother," he said, his voice young but steady. "She told me it was time to stop being afraid, that my voice was a gift, not a weapon." Marcus entered and pulled both children close. "She was right. I was there," David continued, the words pouring out like a dam had broken. "When they hurt her. I screamed and screamed, but they wouldn't stop, so I stopped. I thought if I never spoke again, I could keep the screams inside forever." "Oh, my brave boy," Marcus whispered. "But Adaiz showed me voices could do beautiful things, and you showed me fathers could be gentle, so maybe I can try again." They stayed up all night, David talking, sharing 3 years of stored words. By dawn he was hoarse but smiling. We should celebrate, Adiz announced. David's voice came back. How? Marcus asked, looking at their modest supplies. We sing, she said simply. We go to the beach you always promised to show us, and we sing for the sunrise. So they did. 3 people who'd lost everything and found each other, standing on Bar Beach as the sun painted the sky gold, singing songs of gratitude. People stopped to listen. Some dropped money in the sand near them, thinking they were performing. Adiz started to protest, but Marcus stopped her. Let them give, he said. Sometimes accepting help is harder than giving it. An elderly woman approached as they were leaving. She studied them with sharp eyes. You're Marcus Okafor, she said. It wasn't a question. He nodded, bracing for mockery or pity. Instead, she smiled. I knew your mother. She would be proud of what you've become. I've lost everything, he said quietly. No, she corrected, looking at the children. You found everything. The rest was just things. She pressed something into his hand and left before he could respond. It was a business card. Mama CD, Voice of Africa Studios. Marcus knew that name. She was a legend in Nigerian music, a producer who'd launched countless careers. She heard us sing, Adiz breathed. Mama CD heard us sing. 2 days later, they stood in her studio, intimidated by the gold records and expensive equipment. I don't usually do this, Mama CD said, studying them. But what I heard on that beach, it wasn't just music, it was healing. The world needs more of that. She offered them a deal. Not just for Adiz, but for all 3 of them. A family album, their story in songs. I can't sing, Marcus protested. Neither could David until recently, she pointed out. Besides, I'm not looking for perfect voices. I'm looking for truth. They recorded for 3 months, pouring their pain and joy into music. David's song about finding his voice, Adiz's anthem of chosen family. Even Marcus, speaking more than singing, telling their story over gentle instrumentals. The album was called When Angels Sing Through Broken Wings. It released quietly, no major promotion. But something remarkable happened. People found it, shared it, played it for friends who were struggling, for families who were breaking, for anyone who needed to remember that tomorrow could be different from today. Sales climbed slowly but steadily. Radio stations began playing Adiz's songs. David's voice, young but profound, touched hearts across Africa and beyond. But the real miracle happened when a video went viral. Someone had filmed them on the beach that morning, 3 figures against the sunrise, singing as if their lives depended on it. Because in a way they had. International outlets picked up the story. The billionaire who lost everything and found a family. The orphan whose voice could heal. The silent boy who found his words through song. Offers poured in. Concerts, tours, recording contracts worth millions. But Marcus had learned to be careful now. Every contract was scrutinized. Every deal measured not in money but in what it would mean for his children's childhoods. We'll take it slow, he decided. School first. Normal life first. The music will wait. But Chidi wasn't done. He appeared at their flat one evening looking older, harder. Success hadn't brought him peace. You always land on your feet, he said, standing in their tiny living room. What do you want, Chidi? To make a deal. Your music is gaining international attention. That means lawyers looking into your story, into our family, into the takeover. Marcus understood. International scrutiny would expose Chidi's fraud. You want me to stay quiet? I want us to be brothers again. I'll return the companies, the houses, everything. In exchange for... You stop. No more albums, no more publicity. Take the money and disappear. Live quietly like you used to. Adez and David, listening from their room, crept closer. Like I used to, Marcus repeated. You mean dead inside. I mean safe, protected, rich. I was never safe, Chidi. I was drowning in broad daylight, and you were counting my assets instead of throwing me a rope. I'm throwing it now. Marcus looked at his brother, really looked, and saw not a villain but a broken man who'd chosen fear over love, control over connection. Keep it all, Marcus said quietly. The companies, the money, everything. We don't need it. You're being foolish. Number, I'm being free. Chidi left, but not before looking at the children in the hallway. They'll leave you, he said, when they're older. When they don't need you anymore. Maybe, Marcus agreed. But that's what love does. It gives people the freedom to leave and trust them to stay. After Chidi left, Adaise and David ran to Marcus. You gave up everything, DIEING said. Again. No, Marcus corrected, holding them close. I chose everything, again. The album continued to spread like wildfire. They did select performances, small venues, intimate settings, always together. Marcus learned to harmonize. David grew confident. Adaise's voice matured into something transcendent. But more importantly, they grew as a family. They kept the flat in Surulere even when money started flowing. It was home now, with its noisy neighbors and tiny kitchen and mice that sang at night. They added to it. Better furniture, music equipment, books everywhere, but they didn't leave. Why would we? Adaise asked when reporters wondered why they still lived so modestly. This is where we became us. 3 years passed. Adaise was 15, poised and powerful, but still the girl who sang to heal. David, 11 now, had become somewhat of a prodigy, writing songs that made grown men cry. Marcus had found his place not as a businessman, but as their manager, protector, and father. They were preparing for their first international tour when the call came. Mr. Okafor, this is Dr. Adeleke. I don't know if you remember me. Of course I remember. You brought Adaise to me. Yes. Well, I'm calling because your brother is here, in the same room you were in. He's given up. Marcus closed his eyes. Despite everything, Chidi was still his brother. He won't see me. Marcus found her in the music room teaching David a new harmony. It's your choice, he said after explaining. You don't owe him anything. Adaise was quiet for a long moment. Then, yes, I do. I owe him everything. Without his cruelty, we might never have found our strength. Without his greed, we might never have learned what really matters. They went to the hospital together, all three of them. The same elevator, the same floor, the same room where it all began. Chidi lay where Marcus had lain, but worse. The monitors showed a man whose body worked, but whose spirit had fled. Hello, Uncle, Adaise said softly. No response. She sat beside the bed, just as she had 4 years ago. David took the other side. Marcus stood at the foot, and they sang. Not about pain or loss or betrayal, but about forgiveness, about second chances, about how broken people could still choose to be whole. Chidi's eyes moved behind closed lids. His breathing deepened. They sang about brothers who lost their way but could find it again, about families that bent but didn't break, about love that was bigger than fear. A tear slipped down Chidi's face. Then another. Then he opened his eyes and saw them. The brother he'd tried to destroy. The children he'd tried to steal, surrounding him with something he didn't deserve but desperately needed. Grace. I'm sorry, he whispered. We know, Marcus said. Now come back, there's still time to be better. Chidi wept then, great gasping sobs that shook the bed. And they kept singing, kept surrounding him with love he couldn't earn but was freely given. Because that's what family does. Not the family you're born with, necessarily, but the family you choose, the family you build from broken pieces and bold hope, the family that sings you back to life when you've forgotten the melody of your own heart. As Adaise's voice rose, joined by David's harmony and Marcus's steady bass, the room filled with something more than music. It filled with possibility, with redemption, with the truth that it's never too late to change your song. 5 years later, the Royal Albert Hall in London was sold out. Critics called it the most anticipated concert of the year. But for the 3 people standing backstage, it was just another chance to share their truth. Nervous? Marcus asked his children. Always, Adaise admitted, now 20 and radiant. But it's good nervous, the kind that means something important is happening. David, 16 and taller than Marcus now, adjusted his guitar. Remember our first performance on the beach? When people thought we were begging? Marcus laughed. We were, Adaise said. Just not for money. We were begging the universe to see us, to hear us, to remind us we mattered. And it did, David added. Marcus's phone buzzed. A message from Chidi, who now ran a foundation for children who'd lost their parents. He'd returned everything he'd taken and then some. But more importantly, he'd found his own song. Watching from Lagos with the kids from the center, We're all singing with you." Marcus showed them the message. They smiled. "Ready?" the stage manager called. They joined hands, as they always did before performing. A billionaire who'd lost everything, an orphan who'd found her voice, a silent boy who'd learned to sing. Now they were Marcus, Adais, and David Okafor, a family that had built themselves from scratch, note by note, choice by choice. "For everyone who's lost," Adais said, their pre-show ritual. "For everyone who's searching," David continued. "For everyone who's found that love is bigger than blood," Marcus finished. They walked onto the stage to thunderous applause, but as the lights dimmed and Adais stepped to the microphone, the hall fell silent. She began to sing the song that started it all, the one she'd sung to a dying man in a hospital room. But now it carried the weight of years, of loss transformed to hope, of a family that shouldn't exist but did. Her voice rose like a prayer, like a promise, like proof that angels sometimes come in the form of broken children who refuse to stop believing in tomorrow. David joined on the second verse, his voice no longer tentative but strong, adding layers of pain overcome and joy discovered. Then Marcus, speaking more than singing, telling their story over the melody. "We were 3 lost souls in Lagos town, each drowning in our separate grief. But grace has a way of finding the fallen, and love has a way of bringing relief." The audience wept openly. Not because the performance was perfect. There were missed notes, cracked voices, moments of raw emotion that broke through technique. But because it was real. Because in their imperfection was a truth everyone recognized. We are all broken. We are all searching. We all have a song inside us waiting to heal someone else's pain. As the last note faded, the silence held for a breath, then 2. Then the hall erupted. Standing ovation. Flowers thrown on stage. But the 3 of them only had eyes for each other. They had traveled so far from that hospital room, from that abandoned church, from that dark place where hope goes to die. They had lost fortunes and found treasures. They had been broken and rebuilt. They were living proof that families aren't born but made, that voices can heal, that choosing love over fear changes everything. As they took their bow, Adais whispered what they were all thinking. "We made it." "No," Marcus corrected, pulling his children close as the applause washed over them like baptism. "We made each other." As the final applause echoed in their hearts, Marcus smiled at his children with tears in his eyes. "We did it," he said. Backstage, as the crowd chanted for an encore, Marcus excused himself to the quiet of the dressing room. He closed the door gently, opened the envelope from his doctor, and read the diagnosis again. Early onset Alzheimer's. It wasn't just forgetfulness. It was the beginning of goodbye. He'd known for a while. Moments of confusion, misplaced names, a memory that didn't bounce back like before. But he'd kept it hidden, not wanting to disrupt their joy, not wanting to dim Adiz's light or David's new confidence. But now, he couldn't keep it from them anymore. Later that night in their London hotel, Marcus gathered them in the living room. "I need to tell you something," he began, his voice steady but low. "There's a storm coming for me, one I can't fight off with business or music." He showed them the letter. Silence fell like snow. Adai's eyes filled instantly. "No," she whispered. "Number, we just got you back." David stared at the floor, then slowly signed. "Will you forget us?" Marcus knelt in front of him. "One day. Maybe. But even if I forget your names, your songs, your faces, I will never forget how you made me feel. You brought me back from death. That lives deeper than memory." "But what do we do?" Adesi asked, her voice trembling. "We live," Marcus said, louder, braver, and fuller than ever. "We build something permanent, a legacy, not just in music, but in people, in the lives we touch." 6 years later, the Marcus Okafor Foundation for Music and Memory had centers across Africa and Europe, teaching trauma healing through sound. David, now a globally sought composer, led masterclasses for children who had known silence too well. Adais, still singing, still healing, had paused touring to run the foundation full-time. Marcus didn't remember all their names now. But when they sang, he still smiled, still closed his eyes, still tapped his finger to the rhythm, as if some part of him, buried deep beneath the fog, still remembered love, still remembered being saved by a girl who sang in a hospital hallway, and when he forgot entirely, they sang even louder. So the music could carry his soul gently where memory could not. Because even when memory fades, love does not. Love sings on. The end. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed the story so far, please drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification so you won't miss any updates. Thank you.